Rob.
Uh, oh, there we go.
Can
Yeah,
you
hey,
hear
how
me?
are you?
I'm good.
I
How are
can indeed.
you?
I'm fantastic.
You look good. You sound good. That's a great start to a podcast.
Amazing.
I I was checking out a little bit. I always, and everyone knows this about me, is that I do very little research before I do calls because I always like to be pleasantly surprised. So I learn very, very little about my podcast guests. but
I
I know
love it.
but I know enough. I know enough to interview you.
Sure.
So how have you been? We'll start with
Re-
that.
really good.
Yeah.
I'm newly
Yeah.
married, got our first house, and we've got some exciting family news that's coming around the corner. So it's been a good year.
Oh, well, we won't release your family news on here, but I think everyone will guess.
Yep.
I think we
I'm
can all
pretty
get.
excited.
Oh my gosh, did you just learn about your new family news? Is this like a new thing?
Yes, and we still haven't told everyone yet, so
All right.
it's coming out soon.
All right. Oh, well, I can tell based on your smile that you are just beaming and so happy. And so I am happy for you.
Thank you. I really am. And I know we're going to talk about the business, but that's so important to me is family and what we're building here together. So I couldn't be happier.
That's a great way to actually jump into this because in order to build a business, to build a brand, to launch into healthcare, or any business or any industry for that matter, uh, you have to have an incredibly strong foundation.
Hmm.
And that really does start at home.
Hmm.
Having a partner, having family support, having the support of your parents or your siblings or your friends, all of that is so integral
Hmm.
to the success of your business.
Yeah, and often overlooked as well as internal support.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So you are the founder of Gales.
I am indeed, and I can actually share this. We're really excited that we've launched our new parent company naming called Stand. It's
Awesome.
comfortable shoes for everyone who stands for a living.
I love that. Comfortable shoes for everyone who stands for a living. Well, there are a lot of people that do stand for a living.
It's half the world's population, if
half,
not more.
half the world's population. I, you know, I have I guess the benefit of being able to say that I spent a lot of years standing.
Hmm.
I spent a lot of years running around, climbing stairs, running from patient room to patient room. Um, Definitely on my feet.
Hmm.
Had to wear support socks, especially during pregnancy,
Oh yeah.
um, just to get through 12 hours of being on my feet.
Hmm.
So being able to have comfortable shoes. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that like I turned my foot over in a certain brand of shoe that I will not name on this podcast for, for fear of retaliation.
Smart.
But any nurse listening to this will
Hmm.
know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
We've
Yep.
all turned our foot over in a certain pair of shoes,
Yes.
turned our ankle. So having really good shoes is so incredibly important. And it really it's something that affects every part of your body,
Hmm.
your hips, your knees, your back.
Yep.
Wearing bad shoes is one of the worst things that you can do, especially if you stand.
Hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about how did you get into this? Do you just like fascinated by shoes? Do you just are you one of those shoe guys? Do you have a lot of
You know
shoes?
what's funny? if I had to give myself a title, it'd be an accidental footwear founder. So this
Fair.
all started because I was working 16-hour days in a mailroom on cement floors from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. And we were required to wear dress shoes, which we ended up calling it inception blisters. We'd get blisters on top of blisters. It was the worst. And so I did a lot of research online, and the best that I could find, there was this air insole insert that Cole Haan had at the time, which sadly got discontinued. But there really wasn't anything out there built for being on your feet all day. It's just not how shoes traditionally have been made. A lot of them in olden days were for durability. You want a pair of shoes that's going to last a really long time, which means tougher materials. It means harder, more rigidity. And athletic shoes just didn't cut the bill for this particular industry that I was in. So I put an image online. I got 250,000 hits on this design. Is on a website called StumbleUpon. It's before the days of Instagram. And this cobbler reached out and said, I'd love to make you this pair of shoes. And so my idea was go in and have this guy make them. Well, he ended up giving me a quote of something around $1,600 to make a pair of shoes. And I was going, listen, I make $35,000 a year before taxes. There's no way I can afford this custom pair. And so I presented a creative solution and said, well, how about this? I work 6 days a week. My off day, I'm still supposed to technically be working, but how about this? How about I come into your shop and volunteer, and you teach me how to make shoes, and I get to make my own pair. And so I did that, and over the next 4 months, I became a shoe cobbler just for fun to make this one pair for myself. And after that, wearing the shoe around, this phenomenon would happen where everywhere I would go, people would stop me on the street and ask me, who makes your shoes? Where do I get a pair? And we'd go through this endless loop of who makes them. I did, but who physically? I mean, like I actually put these together. I know how to physically make a shoe. So candidly, that was it at the time. I had my pair. I could work
This is the best
comfortably.
story I've ever heard. I just have, and I've heard a lot of stories. This is definitely at the top.
Well, it gets a lot more interesting, believe it or not.
Oh God, I can't. Keep going.
So it's kind of one of these phenomenons where you have to recognize the signs. If you're getting stopped every day by a stranger, which of course people give each other compliments, but to physically stop someone in the street and say, I will buy basically this pair of shoes off your feet. I put a splash page coming soon. No brand, no visuals, just name, shoe size, email address. So I had 330 people in the course of a year say, I will buy these shoes if you ever make that. It's almost a stranger day. So my naive thought was, well, how difficult can it be to build a shoe business? Next 18 months, pretty much everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The list goes on and on and on of working with the wrong vendors and using the wrong materials and just a really steep learning curve. I'm really happy I did it. And it turns out my great grandpa was a shoe salesman for Walkover Shoes and lived in Shanghai, China. So I found this out after about 18 months of everything not working, and family kind of shared this, what I thought is a pretty key detail that actually kind of runs in our family DNA. So it's an amazing story with him there. But long or the short, I ended up pushing forward and launching this shoe brand out of my tiny shoebox size apartment in New York. The joke was I live in a shoebox filled with shoeboxes. And every day after work, I had to work still a full-time job. And actually in 1 year, I had 19 1099 forms. Every job that I could find, I would work from the mornings and evenings and during the day just to try to get some funds together to build this business because I self-funded the whole thing and I was not in high-paying jobs. Well, I ended up finding this group that was growing direct-to-consumer businesses. And I thought, well, this would be really interesting to get in touch because that's what I'm looking to do here. So I joined that as a consultant, which rolled into a full-time position. Well, in the next 4 years, I ended up growing this small startup working with direct-to-consumer brands, took it from a team of 6 to 68, from 200,000 to 90 million in profits, and we did a little bit over 5 billion in products sold. for what are now household names that previously had not existed before I was working with them. And I learned so much through that. I worked with a little bit over 250 brands. I saw super funded businesses that went out of business. I saw people that literally scratched and bootstrapped together be unicorn businesses. And through that, I learned that the most successful businesses, especially the ones that I gravitated towards, were ones that were solving real problems. And so what ended up happening and how Gales was born, at the start of the pandemic, somebody close to my family got sick with COVID. He's 30 years old. And we did a phone call saying his body's shutting down. He's probably not going to make it. We're going to have to put him into a coma. His care nurse suggested that he try this new type of ventilator that Ford Motors had just developed. It was unproven. It's a risk to suggest something like that. And thankfully she did, because the next 5 days in the ICU had ultimately saved his life. So on that Friday, I quit the day job. I sold my founder shares, identified a nurse innovation group called SunCL here in the States.
I know
That was,
Zanziel.
yeah, so I'm now one of the newest board members as of about a month ago. Absolutely phenomenal group of human beings. And what I loved about that group and how I ended up coming into the chat, so to speak, I just started saying, I'd love to be a donor. I've got the shoe business. I'll put 100% of the proceeds towards this group. I think you guys are doing phenomenal things by nurses for nurses to better the lives of not only the healthcare system, but the individuals who work in healthcare. It seemed crazy to me that we're taking care of everybody else, but who's taking care of the nurses? Who's taking care of everyone that is actually in these mission critical roles? And there just seemed to be a void. So by joining SunCL, I became a mentor and a coach as well. And I just started asking, what are the biggest problems you're facing in your day-to-day life? Had nothing to do with shoes. Just tell me about your day. What do you like? Where are your struggles? What's the solution that doesn't exist that you wish it did? And I kept hearing the same theme come up over and over and over again as it pertains to feet. So I dug in, and what I found out, the first kind of shocking, eye-opening moment was the fact that if you're in the ER or the ICU, there's no shoe covers and your feet are exposed. So if you're wearing shoes with holes in them, mesh athletic shoes, ones that don't fully cover your feet, anything that spills off the table, really high chance of getting on your shoes and strike through with those fluids. If you've got a cut, scrape, or blister on your foot, you're susceptible to having something more in common with your patient than you wanted to. So where this started, I called a few hospitals and I said, well, I'd love to help. Can I just buy and donate shoe covers? I know you guys don't have those. Really interesting response came back was, well, no, thank you, but no. Because shoe covers, once they get exposed to fluids, are considered hazardous waste. And that's really expensive for us as a hospital system to dispose of that. So it came down to cost, and okay, I understand that, but at the same time, these fluids don't just magically avoid shoes. That same hazardous waste that you're concerned about is actually getting on your nurses and your staff's feet. So tell me why that's an acceptable outcome. And what I ended up doing was making some cold calls. The footwear industry seems to be getting smaller by the day. I called up a factory that was close to mine, and I said, I have a really interesting proposition for you. Footwear, we know there's a lot of categories of shoes, but I really haven't seen one that's tackled the healthcare market in a way beyond just they're cute and stylish, but how can we actually provide real protection? Protection from microbes, protection from fluids, protection from slips and falls. And so what we ended up doing is crowdsource designing our first product with a little bit over 1,500 nurses. We did focus groups, we did 30-minute recorded calls, we did surveys, we built an ambassador group, set up chat groups, and out of that came our V1 of Gales, the frontline shoe, with its specific purpose of fluid barrier protection, antimicrobial, cleanable, bleachable protection. Well, as we came to find out, protection goes a lot further than just from fluids. Protection, as you alluded to in the beginning of this, is protecting your feet, protecting your knees, protecting your back, protecting your joints. And when it came down to it, we started hearing this feedback with our product that I actually don't feel like I got hit by a truck at the end of a 12-hour day. And candidly, I have to be honest, we had no idea why. We had no idea why the
Wow.
shoe that we built was performing so much better than existing products. So what we did, we identified an independent lab called Helux. They've tested a little bit over 400 footwear brands for fit, comfort, breathability, wide width, performance, anything that you can name. So we said, okay, let's take the most popular shoes that are worn in a healthcare setting, and let's take our shoes and put them to the test. So there's a lot of areas that we came out on top, and there's a really surprising one that we were scratching our heads on. And it's this concept of energy return. So it's a common term used often in athletic shoes of high energy return as a benefit. It's a good thing. Well, it
Yeah.
is for sports. It stores energy and it puts it back in your body. So that full weight of your step down goes right back up. So if you're trying to jump higher, run faster, high energy return is the shoe for you. The problem is, if you're standing all day, that high energy return means the full weight of your body is pushing right back. So that's increased pressure on your knees, back, and joints. Well, our shoes came up on the total opposite end of the spectrum, which at first, before we understood what high energy return meant, we thought we totally missed the mark. And wow, we're nowhere near what a lot of these athletic performance shoes are offering. And then what it turns out is this energy dispersion factor that this property that we use in our shoes has a completely opposite intended benefit and perk. And it's more like those mats behind the checkout counter that disperse energy. So what it
Wow.
does is when you're stepping down, rather than store that energy and put it back in your body, it disperses it into the floor. So we've started now pushing forward clinical trials and tests. We're looking at treatment of common foot problems that are caused by this upward pressure, like plantar fasciitis and metatarsalgia. And we've actually just become HSA, FSA approved. So to my knowledge, we're the first and only workplace shoe that you can use your pre-tax health benefits on it because there's actual real medical benefits to the product. And that, in
That's
short, is,
amazing.
yeah, and that's what led us to our new opening of the brand as the new name Stand. And really what we've realized is that athletic shoes are built for those early morning runs through a misty forest somewhere up in Portland, Oregon. Stand shoes are built for everything else, for the half the world's plus population that stands on their feet with a shoe that's actually designed for the jobs that they do.
That's incredible. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little woo woo
Yeah.
because I'm all kinds of like I feel like I put the woo in woo woo. So I I always think it's really interesting because there's a lot of I would say uh, energetic or meditation practices or things where you want to ground
Mm-hmm.
and you want to, which is really putting energy and chi, right? Like so it's like this, your chakras and all of this stuff where it goes down and it goes through your feet and it goes into the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're grounding yourself. And there's so much benefit to being grounded. Um and so I think when you were talking about that, for all of the listeners who are as woo woo as I am, but I believe at some point, this will be really rooted in some sort of science, or they'll do enough studies to prove that this
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah.
But rooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grounding, pulling that energy and being strongly rooted where you are
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of, I would say, benefit to your being, your
Mm-hmm.
spiritual being,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what you believe, just your energetic being.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes that is not always given the weight in some
Mm-hmm.
way that
Mm-hmm.
that it should. And sometimes you can't always you can't always measure it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people were feeling it, right? They were saying, I feel better physically,
Mm-hmm.
but probably I would venture to guess spiritually, energetically, that there was a lot of things that were tied into that,
Mm-hmm.
that made them feel good.
So there's two words that you just mentioned, weight and tide, and it brings a visual example to mind. I'm big on analogies and visualizations. I used to be a
Me
swim
too.
coach.
I was a swimmer
Um,
too, so I love.
oh,
Yes,
amazing.
yes.
Yeah. And when I try to teach my kiddos, I give them visual examples, but adults actually learn a lot like that too. But weight and tying and energy, honestly. So an analogy is, when you get those birthday balloons, there's that tiny little plastic weight that's
Mm-hmm.
holding this massive bouquet of balloons down.
Yep.
Well, that weight doesn't weigh that much. It's a tiny little thing that's holding it down. And when we look at our days and are energetic, it's oftentimes the tiny little things that hold all the rest of the positivity, and forward looking down. And I think a lot of times when people think about energy, they focus on what's the big things that are the heavy things. But sometimes all it takes is just cutting out that tiny little weight and the balloons fly, your energy soars. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we talk about in your day, discomfort, to various degrees. For some people, that is their heavy weight. For some, it's a mild annoyance. But regardless, that is a weight that pulls you down from being excited about your job, from feeling comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and from honestly getting to be a human being outside of work. I think it's really unfair that a lot of these jobs are so demanding on your body that it just sucks all the energy away. So by the time you get home, and we're working with Nurse Blake, he's got an amazing comedy tour, and when he pulls the crowds, he goes, "What do we do on our first off day?" And the crowd unanimously responds, "We sleep." Um, and that's really unfortunate. And so with our shoes as well, and going back to energy and weight and ties, what we're really hoping to do is afford the opportunity for anybody that works on these long, honestly thankless jobs, the freedom to cut the ties with pain, with fatigue, and not only enjoy the environment that you're in, but be able to soar like balloons off the weight when you go out into the world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Like everything you just said, it makes so much sense when you think about it, right? I think oftentimes we get used to being in pain,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't even know what it's going to feel like to not be in pain.
Mm-hmm.
I broke my ankle years ago doing something really stupid, a cartwheel. I was like, why at like 40 did I think that I should be doing a cartwheel? Because a 7-year-old was like, hey, we should do a cartwheel challenge. And I took her up on it.
Yeah,
Um,
as you would.
as you would, because, a challenge is a challenge.
Right.
And so I didn't really, I also thought that I would like, give it a little umph and was like, I'm going to turn it into a round off.
Of
No,
course.
I didn't stick the landing. Let's just be honest. I didn't stick the landing. So I heard this horrible crunch in my
Mm.
right ankle. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I just kind of crumpled to the floor. And I have probably dealt with a certain level of pain every day
Mm-hmm.
since. And I'm highly sensitive to whatever shoe I wear. So I'm super hyper aware of what I wear.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, because I'm not really on the floor anymore and I work in this position, right now I'm barefoot.
Mm-hmm.
And I do wear Birkenstocks a lot,
Yep.
but I'm very conscientious of like when I do have to wear like a shoe, like an actual running shoe or standing shoe or walking shoe or something like that. I'm very conscientious because I know it's going to mess up my ankle. Like I'm going to pay for it the next day, 2 days later. So I'm always on the lookout for a shoe that's going to alleviate that
Mm-hmm.
because it takes so much, like you said, you don't realize how much it takes from you. You think you're just moving along and you're getting through it.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute that pain lifts, it's just palpable and noticeable how much more energy, how much more focus I have, how much more I can think, reason, calculate, all of these things that are really important if you're a nurse, by the way.
Oh yeah.
you kind of you kind of want to be able to think and to
Right.
reason and to go, maybe we could utilize this amazing ventilator that made by Ford. You want to be able to do that.
Right.
And you don't even know who you are or who you're capable of being, like the potential of who you could be,
I love that.
until you're out of pain.
Right. It takes such a high priority in the brain when you're uncomfortable. And I think something that I found with the nurse community and really what gravitated me towards this community in the first place is I have never met another group of individuals who embrace so much hardship with a smile. And the counter to that is I don't think that should be the case. I know, like in the SEALs, they have a term called embrace the suck, is sometimes it's
Yeah.
going to really suck. You're up to your boots and necks in mud. It's cold. You're being shot at. You have no food and you have to embrace it to do your job. Well, with nurses, we're not out on the front lines, so to speak, in the battlefield. We're on the front lines at home. And there are some comforts that absolutely should be afforded. You shouldn't have to embrace, it's just going to be a painful day. And I think there's just this level of we just do what we do. And I admire and appreciate that. But at the same time, that's why I wanted to raise my hand and say, actually, help can be here. And I'd like to, at least in some small way, provide a little bit of brevity in the day. We can't solve all solutions and problems in one, but that is such a big factor. And let me tell you, talking about accepting things that are uncomfortable, and as you mentioned, this sigh of relief. Airport, we've accepted the TSA and long lines. It's just a mess. But let me tell you, there's nothing better than showing up and having no one in line. You get to keep your shoes on. You blaze right through, and it's just wow, what a great feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think that we've been able to create something like that for your feet. Is I did not realize that my days could be this much more comfortable and allow me the opportunity, like you said, to focus on the things that actually matter.
Yes, self-love, self-care, it really does start with, we talk about things like, oh, make sure you take a bubble bath or you do this and that, like it, and that, honestly, it oftentimes just pisses people off. they're like
Yeah.
they're like, you don't get it, like you don't understand, a bubble bath's not going to fix my problems, right? um and but what it's really about is doing something for yourself. So, for example, I am a member of Clear because I do not like to stand in line. I like people, but I love people, actually. I always say I'm like a hopeless romantic when it comes to humanity. Like I really genuinely like love people, which I guess is why I'm the VP of community. So, but I don't like to stand in line. I want to just walk through. I want to
Mhm.
just have somebody take me to the front and politely put me in front of everybody else because I've paid for that. Um, and I always feel a little bit bad. I'm like, I'm sorry, excuse me. And then I go to the front. Um,
Mhm.
but it's about doing something for yourself
Right.
and realizing that you are a priority, and that in order for you to be your best, and that's not just the best nurse, okay, like
Mhm.
yes, that's your profession, that's your job, it's what you do for a living, and it is important, and humanity is grateful to you,
Mhm.
but it's also about being able to be your best self, outside of work, so that, like
Mhm.
what you said, you're not having to sleep your day away. Who wants to sleep their day away? You want to go out and enjoy the sun, or go ride a bike, or run around with your kid or play soccer or something like that, you want to be able to do that, because then that makes you feel good, makes you feel like you're a good parent, a good spouse, and just all in all good to yourself, that you're really able to enjoy those days off. I know we all laugh about, you know, and I think like that's how we connect. Sometimes we trauma bond. Okay.
Hmm.
People trauma bond. And part
Hmm.
of like how we feel a sense of belonging is over shared trauma.
Right.
And some of that's shared foot pain. Like so
I'd wager a lot of that is shared foot pain.
shared foot pain. Right. Um, but I think it's important to bond over other things,
Right.
and really to value yourself. So I think, it's like you can say like, oh, we're just talking about shoes. It's like, well, no, we're not just talking about shoes. We're talking about the choices that we make for ourselves so that we
Hmm.
feel better.
And you actually, in a way, just almost answered the topic of building a business in healthcare, as we alluded to in the beginning of this, with having support. And I had mentioned support within. I think in order to build a business, sure, there's ideas, and I could talk at length about some tactical pieces, but really what it comes down to is making sure that you have that internal support, a mind space, this belief in yourself, areas of comfort that you are your non-negotiables. One of my mentors told me, he goes, you got to make sure that you can eat every day and keep a roof over your head. Because let me tell you, starting a business is hard enough. And if you're worried about where your next meal is going to come from, you're making it exponentially harder. So for anybody that's interested in building a business, I would just say, listen to the words that you just said. It's finding those areas of support for yourself. What does that mean to you? And for some people, it may be a bubble bath. For me, it's not. I'm a shower guy, but finding what specifically works for you to create environments and spaces for yourself, similar to how foot pain makes it really challenging to focus on the job. Having any kind of pain or hardships that you're struggling with mentally and internally, that clouds a space of creativity that makes it really challenging to put together a business. So first and foremost, prior to starting any business, I would say focus on what can you do for yourself, and can you create, if not, listen, it'd be great if we could all have lives with sunshine and rainbows, and that's just not the case. Life happens. There are difficulties. I don't think we're ever going to be, I mean, if anybody has this perfect charm life, phenomenal, enjoy that. But for the majority of us, we don't. And it's learning to figure out, how do you create those safe spaces, and how do you create things that make your days a little bit nicer and safer and happier. But really, overall, I would say that's building block number one, is
Mm-hmm.
find a way to put yourself into a space where you're free. You have freedom of thought, you have freedom of excitement. I used to love coaching kids because they're at that age where they're so unburdened by a lot of what we experience in the world. So if you can try to find a way to get back to that youthful creativity and have an idea, don't be so critical on yourself, and just play
Yeah.
for a bit before you dive into it. But I think more than anything else is finding that space and creating that space is such a key building block for anybody who wants to build anything, let alone a business, a family,
Yep.
anything else important in your life.
It's 100% true, because I built a business and then I sold my business to Nurse.com. Well, to
Mm-hmm.
Relias, who owns Nurse.com. And you you have to be 100-year-old oak. Like you need to be so strongly rooted, because the winds can be, not to do a play on words, but gale force winds.
Yay!
I was like,
Bonus points.
boom. I was like, oh, here it comes. Here's my
Love it.
play on words. But they can be really, really strong, and the ability to weather those storms that are undoubtedly going to come. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have not talked to a single founder, business owner, CEO who has not weathered a major storm. And so the ability to be so strongly rooted in the ground, to be that firm, that lighthouse, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
for the people that work for you,
Mm-hmm.
for other people in the industry who are looking at you as like this really strong pillar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's so incredibly important, and I think that you become that 100-year-old oak, you know, over less than 100 years, um, by embracing, and I think ad nauseum the listeners on this podcast have heard me say, um, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like,
Mm-hmm.
put yourself in uncomfortable situations. You get more rooted, you get stronger when you have to experience small amounts of discomfort that overcome, discomfort that you can overcome, right? Like, it's not like, I'm not talking about physical discomfort necessarily, but like just opportunities for growth, right?
Discomfort is actually probably the biggest marker, a sign you're growing. If you, again, going back to shoes, if your shoe doesn't fit, it's because your foot grew.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with people. Discomfort, obviously, don't actively seek environments that are discomfortable in a negative way, but
Yeah.
you should feel a bit of discomfort, which means you're stretching
Yeah.
beyond your bounds and you're growing. It's a positive sign. And I feel like a strong avoidance of discomfort. I think that's what holds a lot of people back. They're waiting for
Mm-hmm.
the right time, for the most perfect, comfortable situation, but it's uncomfortable
Yeah.
to start a business. It's uncomfortable to do something no one else has done. You're going to find a lot of people who don't believe in what you're doing, who can't see the same vision you are. It's going to be uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
that's, in my mind, a really good marker that you're doing something that's leading to growth.
Yeah. It's like starting a family. When you have a child, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to. You're like, it's not time. I'm not ready. I'm not in the right space. I'm not in the perfect, And I was like, if you think that there's going to be a perfect time, you're kidding yourself. You're bringing a life into the world, for God's sake. It's
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
it, you are not going to know. I have a 12-year-old. You do not know what is ahead, and you can't plan for it. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
So one of those discomfort things is like going, I'm going to start a family. I'm going to bring a life into the world. I'm going to do, so, and we start out being uncomfortable. We come through a birth canal, many of us. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
if you think that's not, like, they call it labor for a reason.
Right.
So, we enter the world with a certain level of discomfort, but it's a passage, it's a journey, it's moving into life. And
Right.
so, as you can see, I'm super woo woo, but if you start a business, you become this way. You either, you I've heard a number of stories of founders who have like sold their business and then they go off and they're like growing vegetables and, or mushrooms somewhere, so
Yeah.
like, I've heard a lot of stories, but you get there, I think, through a lot of this evolution um, and just that physical growth. So I think that, and spiritual and emotional and
Mm-hmm.
mental and all of it, growth. And so I think like what you're bringing to the table here is just your whole story. Just like when I said, oh my gosh, this is the most incredible thing I've ever heard, that you like went and became a cobbler. Like, I was like, that's fantastic. That's it. And that's what entrepreneurs, do. That's what dreamers, creatives, this is what we do.
And I'll be honest as well, just as human beings, I firmly believe there's a reason why we're the most visibly populous species on the planet. So we have the strongest will to survive. If you look historically, we were not better equipped. There was animals much bigger and fiercer than us, but I firmly believe there's a reason why humans are the most populous present creatures, animals on the earth. It's that survival instinct. And I firmly believe that as a human being, you're depriving yourself of what it means to be human if you live your whole life in safety and security.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a look at, I don't go to zoos and I'd love animals to be free. But if you take a look at a lion in a cage, it stops becoming a lion. You're depriving it of what it was put on this planet to do. And with human beings, it's the same thing. When you fight for, I just need this safety net, I need my cage, I need this area that I can be in to be comfortable, you're not allowing yourself the human experience. And what's incredible, I very, very, very rarely find people when they actually step out of the cage and put themselves in this environment. Very rarely do I find people not actually making themselves succeed, not actually finding something about themselves or pushing forward. Because when our backs are against the wall as human beings, you don't realize this, but you will fight harder than anything else on this world, and you will make it work. And so I encourage anybody listening to this is embrace who we are as animals and as people. Give yourself the
Yeah.
opportunity to put yourself into an unsafe in a business sense
Yeah.
scenario and see what you're made of.
And sometimes you don't put yourself in the like so I'm a poker player. I always say like a lot of what I learned and strangely enough, Rob, I ran a swim school before I was a nurse. That's how I put myself through nursing school is I owned a swim
Incredible.
school. So you and I have a
Incredible.
lot in common. I've never cobbled shoes. But I don't know if that's the appropriate
You nailed it.
verb. Is that a verb?
You got the first check done.
I don't think I've cobbled shoes, but I've done a lot of things, but not that. And but I think you learn a lot in these situations that you don't even realize you're taking with you
Mm-hmm.
later in life. The fact that I love poker, and if I didn't sit so much for a living, I would probably do more poker today. But I'm like, oh my gosh, Cara, do not sit at a poker table. You'll sit there 8 hours. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I learned so much about myself in those situations. A, being a woman, being kind of in a minority in the poker tables, still to this day, you see more women today than you used to. But my great grandmother
Mm-hmm.
used to play poker, and which I thought was fascinating that
Mm-hmm.
like we both kind of had this in common. But she used to go and tell people, like she would go to the table and, she was literally like the only woman
Mm-hmm.
at the poker table. But the stuff that you learn about yourself, the ways to navigate, to strategize, to put a certain face on, to know when to go all in and when to pull back and when to fold and when to show your cards and when not to show your cards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so interesting how you take these pieces of your life, and as nurses, this is 100% true, that what a lot of the skills that you have as a nurse, you would not believe how many of those skills you would take into building a business.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot.
And I never thought about this before until you just brought up poker. But when people take a look at building businesses, usually their metric is it's got to succeed, it's got to make money, it's got to be wildly successful. When you go to the poker table, really there's only going to be one winner if it's winner
Yeah.
takes all. But you still show up because there's other values and benefits. Like you just said, you learn skill sets, you learn about human interactions, you have fun.
Mm-hmm.
There's a spike in adrenaline. So with businesses, I think that uh, unfairly so, the bar is usually set to if I go out to do this, the only end result is I have to win. Well, most businesses don't succeed, but that doesn't mean the human being has failed. It means you as a business person have gained a whole wealth of knowledge. So I would almost encourage to reframe the mindset of building a business. The goal should be to experiment, to learn something new. And these are transferable skills, by the way. You didn't fail as a human because your business didn't work out. There's a lot of successful entrepreneurs who failed time and time. I've failed multiple businesses. It doesn't mean you as a human are a failure. And in fact, it means you're much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, when I talk to investors, they love failed founders because they've learned a lot.
Yep.
They've uncovered new ways of thinking, and these are transferable skills. So let's say you decide to build business number two, you're that much better for it. Let's say you decide building a business isn't for you. Wow, what an incredible experience to get to go out on your own, try new things, learn new ways. And if you decide that you want to go back and work for a business, you've got a whole new wealth of skills that you didn't have before. So winning in business, for me, I'll be really honest, is to grow a profitable, successful business. But there's
Yeah.
so many other positive elements that come out of it. And if you can set those goals and parameters for yourself, I think it eases stepping into the water as well. It sounds like if you're a swimmer in competitive sports, your
Mhm.
personal best for me is what I always raced
Yep.
towards. If it happened to be the fastest in the pool at that time, great. But I'm not swimming because of that. I'm swimming to have personal best. And similar with building a business. I don't think it should be so binary of did the business succeed or not. I think there's so many other incredible attributes and values in starting a business that you just don't get in any other way.
Yep. Well said. That's a great mic drop, by the way. I'm always looking for the moment where I'm like,
Airbud drop.
I was like, that's the mic drop right there. That was so good. I mean, sometimes I do these interviews and I think, oh my gosh, this is so rich with content. There's so much value like packed into this episode. And I am just incredibly grateful to you for having come on, shared all of this incredible experience, um, the things that you have learned, just demonstrating and being honest and vulnerable about the fact that you failed. I mean, we people get really hung up on that. Failure is a
Mm-hmm.
tough thing for a lot of people, and when I was acquired, and I've said this before, the one thing that they said to me is they said, the reason why we want to acquire your business and the reason why we want you to come along is because you know how to fail and fail fast and fail forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that, what I mean, I will never forget that for as long as I live, because I was like, wow, this wonderful thing is happening for me. And it's actually happening. Like the thing that they're calling out is not that I built this thing, not that I did this, not that not that they have this thing that they think is so valuable and they want to bring it to be part of Nurse.com.
Mm-hmm.
But it was because they want me to come, me.
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO has pulled me aside before and he's like, Cara, I want to be honest with you. He's like, the platform, the business, all of it, that's wonderful. He's like, we acquired you.
Mm-hmm.
You. You were the value that was in
Mm-hmm.
this company, you and your team. And I think it's really important to remember that, because you can have a really great idea, but a lot of times what people are investing in, what they're acquiring, is you, what you've infused into that company. And you've
Right.
done that with Gales, like you've just infused and stand, that is now. So is Gales like that stand is the parent company, and is Gales still its own shoe?
Yes, so we have the
Okay.
Gales Front line and the Gales Pro line. That's our roots in healthcare, and we continue to improve even those product lines as well. And with Stan, that opens us up to bartenders, waiters, chefs, healthcare, hospitality, everybody else. So the
So
Gales
cool.
name lives on, and Stan opens us up to new audiences. But to really sum it up, I think what you just said so succinctly and perfectly, I have to give credit to my wife for this one. It's a phrase, and I think you embody this phrase. It's everything is figure outable. And from my experience, not only is no one expecting you to be the smartest person in the room, but oftentimes, if that's your sole focus, it's going to lead to failure. People recognize that no one has all the answers. No one is truly an expert. I believe when someone calls himself an expert, they're now looking at a playbook that by definition, tomorrow's a new day. It's already outdated. But what really the key is that you embody, and if I take a look at our journey in different paths, but marching forward, it's this belief that everything is figure outable. And I think that's really the key mentality is I'm not going to know it all. There's always going to be somebody smarter than me. There's going to be a turn that I didn't foresee. But as long as I recognize that everything is figure outable,
Yep.
it is, then you will succeed.
Well said. Well said. Rob, I'm very excited for the launch of this episode. I don't even know when it's going out. I have to look at the calendar. That's not my job. No, it's everybody's job. But I'm very excited for this to reach our audience. I now need to go buy a pair of Gail's shoes because I don't have them.
We will change that quickly.
But I will have them. I promise. I'm going to get myself a pair.
I'll take care of you.
I know Blake. I'm going to text him and say, hey.
Please do.
How come you didn't send me some shoes?
He's actually got a custom line with us too. Does very well.
I know he does. I'm really excited for this to reach the audience. It just has so many pearls of wisdom, and I just cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your day to come and spend some time with me. And I feel like we'll probably be friends.
I love it. I'm so in. And just a thank you to the audience as well. This company would not exist without everyone doing what they're doing in healthcare to give back. And that's really been since day one and will continue to be my forever source of inspiration is for others taking so much care of everyone else. I aspire to be like that.
Well, thank you so much. We're taking care of nurses so that they can take care of everybody else. So appreciate you.